thanks very much for joining us, everyone. Just wanted to introduce myself. So my name's Ryan. I've been with the 2020 Fusion support team for coming up to 2 years now. So yeah, just want to of course, let you guys know that we'll be creating the wow effect essentially today. That's the aim of it. Hopefully, teach you something new. So I'm just going to jump into Fusion now. What I do want to do is just start with a nice sort of simple plan. So if we can just go with this, bear with me a second. Okay, so here's our plan here. Not much going on, of course, as you can see. This here is just the box standing out at the moment, but we'll touch on that shortly. So just a couple of boxes sort of here as well, and very few sort of appliances sort of added in here. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to start with changing the floor. So to do this, I'm going to go to the Insert tab. We're going to go to Coverings and just hit the drop down arrow here, and we'll go to Floor. Okay, so we're just going to click this little button here that says Add. Now we've got a selection we can choose from. I'm actually going to choose a bespoke one that I found on the internet. Just to make you aware, you can do that by clicking on Manage My Surface Materials. And this is where you can sort of decide to import ones to this design or any design just by sort of browsing to the location that you've saved that in. So to actually display that, we're just going to click Display My Surface Materials. So here is the floor I'm going to use today. So I've just selected it and we'll click OK. So we get a small preview here of what it's going to look like. At the moment, as you can see, it's a bit zoomed in, so I'm just going to change this to 750 by 750. And so our preview's looking a little bit more clear. So in terms of this design, I think I'm personally going to go for a sort of offset on the orientation. So what we can do here, we can decide to play around here with the orientation. And you can see the preview changing as you pop in a number. I'm just going to set this one to 45. If I now click OK, you should get a sort of full preview of that. I'm just going to click Confirm. And we should see that take effect. Okay, so that's now loaded in. Next step I wanted to sort of touch on is actually changing the color of the wall. So I've just right-clicked it and gone to Change Material. If I double-click in here, using the Farrow & Ball catalog, so you do have to have this drop-down as catalog colors. And here, of course, you would have to choose the catalog in question. I'm just going to scroll down to one that I've sort of found previously and just click through the OK buttons. And we can see that change taking effect. I'm just now going to highlight these boxes here as well. Just holding down Control to highlight all of those. If I then right-click, go to Change Material, and go to our current selection. Again, we're just going to double-click in here and just scroll down to the color that we're after and click OK and OK. So that's now taken effect. Just going to pop into Plan View now, because next on the list really is to start adding some decorative items. So within the Insert tab as well, under our Catalog items, which I've got them all on my palette here, docked here. If I click Catalog Items, what we're going to be looking at is some grouped items that I've saved from the cloud. So we'll go into the cloud in a little bit as well. But we're just looking at this little button here, our Grouped Items Selector. If I click on that, we will get a list of grouped items essentially that I've saved. Now it's important to know that the cursor plays a part in when creating these grouped items. So wherever you sort of bring them in from while saving them sort of has an effect, which I'll show you. First of all, I'm just going to attach my cursor here, and I'm just going to double click here, okay, and bring that in. So that's just one example there. I'm just going to again attach my cursor to here. Just going to bunch that along a little bit. I don't know if you are aware, but within your Insert tab, you have a little cursor section here. I'm just going to move it along slightly before I add in my next item and go from there. Okay. Again, attaching my cursor to this item, I'm going to bring in some glasses here. As I say, what I'll do sort of next is show you how you can actually sort of save these grouped items, and then how you bring them in. Essentially, how I'm bringing them in quite nicely. Okay, so if we're sort of happy with that, what we'll do next is just bring our cursor over to here. I'm then going to just highlight these. We're going to hit Control D to duplicate them. So there they are. I'm just going to grab this one as well. And again, hit Control D. Okay, so let's space these out a little bit maybe. And what I'll do is I'll show you an example of exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the cursor position and your grouped items. So let's say my cursor is positioned here. What I'm going to do to create this grouped items is select them all. That's when our items tab then becomes available. If I then click grouped items, let's for instance call this test 2 because I've already got a test 1 there. Okay, and click OK. So we can see that's populated now. And if I was to delete these, so again, pay attention to where these items are and where the cursor is. If I was to delete them, let's just say, yep, the cursor is there now. We're going to add in our test 2. And you'll see that that is identical to where they were just a moment ago. So the same sort of positioning really. What we could do if we found ourselves in that scenario and we didn't quite like where the items were coming in from, what we can do is actually overwrite it. So again, what we could do is we could bring these items across. Say we wanted them just there, for instance. We're going to again hit our grouped items button, and we're going to call it exactly the same as the group that it's already in, so test 2. So what this will do is essentially it will pop up saying, asking us if we want to overwrite it. So we click yes, and so that has overwritten that. And just to prove that, if I delete them, add in our test 2 again, you can then see that these items have now sort of come in just as we updated it just a moment ago. Okay, so next step really is we're going to look at the cloud and add in some lights. So that's under Insert and Browser. Of course, we would sign in up here and put in our details once we're sort of logged in. So if your name is up there, you know you're signed into the cloud. So I'm just going to go on the Browse section here. This is where we can look to find certain items. And what we'll do here, there's plenty of choice here, by the way. You know, it ranges from just sort of your decorative items here. You can go right down to sort of things within the garden. There's so much to sort of choose from. You can go with people as well. So you know you'll be hard pressed to not find what you're looking for. You know you've got things like pets as well here. Later on I'll show you sort of a plan with some more fleshed out items within this one that we're looking at. But yeah, so just have a little browse around here and find what you're looking for. I'm sure you'll be able to. So we're just going to look at some lights. We're going to go with some ceiling lights here. If I go to this one here, just going to pop this one in, just there. We'll just clear that back down. Come back here. I'll go to our cabinet lights now. Again, quite a nice selection here as well. Just going to pop in the one in question that I'm after. Oh, sorry, wrong one there. Let's just go to lighting. So just this one here will do. So you may have noticed that I've got a grid sort of showing at the moment. Personally, I do find that it is very helpful. Just when trying to get your spacing right, can particularly sort of help with the lighting. Of course, this is not going to be perfect at the moment, so I'm just demonstrating. But just so you are aware, under the View tab, it's just this button here under the Display section. So if I click that off, that's it without the grid. And now the grid is on. Obviously, it's orange to show that it's on as well. Okay, so we've popped in a couple of lights. I'm just going to, again, attach my cursor here. I'm going to grab some others that I've got saved in my groups here. So I've got some under cabinet lights. So we're just going to pop in. So just going to go into perspective now and have a little look. So at the moment, you can see it's sort of starting to take shape. We haven't got a theme selected at all, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But you know, this is just early stages. Okay, so we've got some lights in. Personally, next step for me would be to maybe look at getting the background in there, because as you can see at the moment, it is blank. So again, under the View tab, we've got under our lighting section, there's a theme button. So if we, a background button. So if we go to our background here, there are some stock ones here. Also, what we've got, these are all ones that I've actually brought in. Again, you can bring these in from the internet as well. Just as a quick example, you can go to New Background. Works similar to like our coverings as well for our floor, etc., where you can import them into this design. And then once you do that, they all actually sort of show here. So I've got one that I know works well with this room. So just popping that in there. Okay, we're just going to address this box here now as well. So I've popped this in earlier. All that is a star box from Advanced Graphics. Thing to pay attention to here is our length and height. So length being 1500 and our height being 1000. Okay, so we're going to look at covering this. So another thing under the Items tab, first of all, you want to go to the Settings button here under Attributes. If we just click that, we're going to look for a tick on Surface Cover. Okay, so that has to be ticked in order for us to cover the box. Okay, so we're going to go under the Insert tab, and then we're clicking Select Surface here. Okay, so now we will just select our box, and then under Coverings, we're going to Item Surface. Okay, so you can see that it's picked up the floor. We're just going to highlight that and delete it. Again, we're adding a custom image, so we're going to click Add and Display My Surface Materials. So we're going for this Grey Lake one here. So again, it has picked up the layout from the floor. I'm going to change this. So of course, I said 1500, 1000, and of course, we're setting our orientation to 0. Okay, so I'm just tabbing through those by the way, just hitting the tab key. So if I click OK now, I should get a little preview there. I'm just going to click Confirm. You should see that change take effect there. Okay, so sticking on the sort of subject of boxes and what else you can potentially achieve, I'm just going to go into our plan view now. Again, I'm going to attach my cursor to this box here. And we're going to go to our catalog items and Advanced Graphics and just type in star box. So we're going to draw in a box here. what I'd like to show you is just a handy little tool under the Home tab. There's actually a little measure button. So if we click on this, we can actually get some snapping points so we can get the length sort of correct. Actually just going to trim that down slightly to 3000, but it gives us a good indication. We're going to put our depth to 5. I'm happy with the height. Next thing to pay attention to is our height off the floor. So we want this at the worktop height at 910. Okay, I'm just going to click the add button now. And so you can see our box has come in there. Let's go into perspective. And what we're going to do now is just right click this, go to change material again, current selection. I'm just going to double click again, sort of similar to our walls, of course. What we're going to go here is make sure we've got catalog colors as well. Just going to go to the catalog I'm actually using. We're going to type in this one here, just so we get this all looking very similar here. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, that's now taken effect. Now, next thing we're going to look at is our themes. So again, this is under the View tab. Okay. So just under lighting, the lighting section, we've got our themes. So as I said earlier, it is set to none. If we was to maybe just set that to clear sky, you can see that the room has brightened up nicely as well. Just want to get off of that box. For some reason, it's staying selected. Okay, so let's go back into perspective. Right, so we've got our clear sky there. Next thing we're going to look at is actually adding some additional sort of themes. So what you may have noticed, so there is a little button down here. Okay, it says Add Named View. If I click that, we can see that another tab has actually opened here. So if I just double click that, let's call that midday. And if I then right click this, we can opt to change the lighting settings so that it's not sharing them with our main view, which is the first one that was created. So this now it has its own independent sort of lighting settings within this named view. So we can change this now and give it a midday sun. Let's go into presentation though, just so you can get a feel for what we're doing now and the changes that are taking effect. So something to also be aware of here is that under the sort of sections here with these arrows, and we can set the direction of the sun. So for instance, we could maybe sort of change that direction a little bit if we wanted to see where it looks elsewhere in the room. And we can also play around with the incline as well. So it was set to 45, just changing that to 25. I mean, personally, I'm quite happy with where it was. So I'm just going to change that back to this little arrow down here in the bottom right. For our midday sun, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to look at some other named views, again, what you can do. So again, just clicking that little button here, double clicking. Let's give this one the name of night. And as you can guess, I'm going to change the theme to a nighttime theme. Right, okay, so we've got our nighttime theme. Of course, what we could do if we wanted to was maybe turn the lights down a little bit as well. So we could potentially sort of highlight our ceiling light, go to our items tab, maybe turn that sort of right down. Okay. Right, so we've got that here. So you just get a feel for what you can sort of achieve. Let's go for another tab here. I'm going to double click this and we'll call this one sunset. So again, as you can guess, the theme now, I'm going to change that to sunset. So it's just something that you can do to really help visualize the sort of space in certain scenarios for your customers. It's just what it's all about with Fusion and what you can achieve. Let's go back to our midday sun though. Okay, and what we're going to look at now, I'm going to look at going into Presentation Plus in this example. So of course this will take a little bit longer to render. But what I wanted to bring to your attention is under the Effects tab here. This basically sort of appears in these top 3 renders here, so Presentation, Presentation Plus, and Publish. So if we go on to this, we've got some sort of effects that we can use. Now these are all post effects, so you don't have to wait for Fusion to re-render at all. So we can tweak this sort of now. So we put our brightness up a little bit maybe, bring a bit of the contrast down. Again, it's all just worth experimenting here, just to get the look that you're after. And what we're going to do here is you can actually play with the color temperature. Okay, so we can go warmer to the left or cooler to the right. Okay, so we're just going to maybe go around here and possibly play with the saturation a little bit. So that really comes into play with the background in particular. You can see the changes that are happening in there. If you keep your eye on that, it just makes it a little bit more vibrant, you see. It's going to bring that down a little bit as well. So what we can also do is we can decide that we like this post effect, and we can save it just by clicking on Save Favorite. Okay, so let's just call this warm. And then what we can potentially do is reset it to see exactly what it's looking like before. Okay, so bringing out some colors nicely there. Just going to click on that now. Another thing to point out is the pick a white point and pick a black point. It does take some practice, but essentially we're going to tell Fusion to pick a point of pure white and a point of pure black. You can experiment with this a little bit, but just to show you a very subtle difference here, I'm just going to pick this here, and we can see a very slight change there. If I went into the light, there would be a bit more of a change, but personally I'm just going to click on there, click our black point now, and go for like a darker sort of look. At any point we can of course reset this and change that. We can go elsewhere if we want, until we basically find what we're looking for. Personally, kind of happy with this one. So, and don't forget, of course, we can always sort of change this if we wanted to make things a bit brighter as well. We can do that. Okay, so just something to be aware of there. We've also got our artistic effects as well. So it might be worth having a little look here. I think canvas and paper are quite a nice little touch personally. But yeah, so if not, of course you've always got the option for none. Okay, so just to make you aware there. So next thing I sort of wanted to point out is the 360 panoramas now. Okay, so we're going to go to our navigate view. Just for this example, I'm going to go into draft because it would be quicker when we actually produce the 360 in a lower render. So you'll see within the navigate view, of course, just so you are aware, you can right click here to change the position you're standing in, and left click to change where you're looking to. Okay, so yeah, I might come over to this side a little bit. So under the View tab now, Position is the area we're looking at, and this little button here, it says Save View. So if we click on that, we can see that a viewpoint has been generated. Okay, so what we can do is right click that, and we can rename that to bottom right. Okay, so these are just essentially what we're doing here is we're setting up the multi-point views for our panorama, which I'll show you shortly. So again, just clicking this Save View button, right clicking, clicking Rename. I'm going to go with bottom left. Okay. And then finally, I mean, you can have more than 3. I'm just going to use three in this example. Just going to the middle here, having a little look round as well to make sure I am happy with the height that I'm at. Okay, so yep, happy with that. So let's click on our Save View again. Right click, rename it. I'm going to go middle. Okay. Right, so next step now is to just click on our little drop down arrow here and go to 360 panorama. Just going to click through this so that we can then get to our next point. So I've already set up my details prior to this. So what we can do now, we can actually, if we've got quite a few sort of viewpoints and we decide, oh, okay, we don't want one, you can actually just hold Control and select whichever ones you like. Of course, you can just select one, but we're in this instance going to select all. Okay, so just pay attention here to the render setting. You can opt to change it. So it's not like you have to sort of actually render, say, in Publish for all of these views to then run your sort of panorama. You can just literally click Publish and change that if you like. Of course, we're gonna keep it here to draft, just for speed. So if I click OK now, what we'll find is that this will generate, and shouldn't take too long. I'm hoping should only be a minute or so. Okay, so we're here already. We can actually get a little preview of what it's going to look like. So I'm just dragging here with my left mouse. We can jump to viewpoints. Okay, and here again, and have a little look before actually clicking Publish, which then publishes it on the internet. So in this example, I'm just going to cancel that and come through that because I just wanted to show you within File and Options. Okay, you can actually, under Internet Settings, you can decide if you want this to generate in the background. So that would be an advantage if you've chosen the Publish render and you don't want Fusion to be sort of frozen at all whilst creating that, so you can still actually carry on using Fusion. So you would just select that essentially, and it will whirl away in the bottom right there, and it will let you know when it's done. Okay, so just going to come off of this sort of plan for now and sort of show you one from earlier. And essentially, just with a bit more going on, of course, a lot more sort of decorative items. This is actually in the Publish render as well. Okay, so we can see that for one, I've grabbed a sort of fish tank as well from the cloud. We've got quite a few sort of cloud items here on the sort of island as well. Of course, as in a couple of chairs and sort of a clock as well. You'll notice, of course, that this door is open as well. There's some items in there. If you weren't aware of how to do this, it is just a simple case of sort of clicking on the item in question. Under the Items tab, go into Properties. Okay, and so what we can do here is just have a little look around here and get our preview. We can go down to the bottom. At the moment, we can see the door is set to open at 600. We can change that, and we can see that our preview here has changed, right? So yeah, just a nice, easy way to do that. So it's usually at the bottom, sort of in this section. Just going to cancel that though. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to make you all aware of is sort of exporting. So if we wanted to export, say, a view like this, for instance, we can actually just go to File and then Export. Okay. So this is the area that we want to basically set our width and height. Now this is essentially resolution, so like your HD, your full HD, and 4K. This one is actually set to 4K here. But as an example, you could pop in 1280 by 720, which is just HD. Okay, or you could pop in 1920 by 1080 for full HD. Okay, so yeah, again, 4K is just what I'm popping in here, 3840 by 2160. It's important to keep the JPEG quality at 100, and definitely click on background export for this one, because it will take a good few hours most likely. And what you also need to do as well is under the options section, we need to go down to our render settings just here. And what we're looking at is the maximum pixels. Okay, so Fusion will default to 2500. I tend to have mine set to around 1400, just to really sort of get that crisp, clear image. And just to actually sort of show you what you can achieve here, I'm just going to sort of show you some images. The first one will be our HD image. So I'm just going to bring that up on screen. Okay, so yep, from a distance, of course, doesn't look too bad. Of course, it looks quite nice. Thing is, if we opt to zoom in a bit, even just a little bit, we can see that it is sort of becoming less and less clear. So that's because it's just in HD, and that's a lower pixel resolution as well. So what we can do, of course, to actually make it look a lot sharper is we can, of course, set how I had mine set to 4K. I mean, straight away, of course, you can see how clear the image looks. And if we actually zoom in some more, we can see that the clarity is staying there. Of course, if you get to certain points, it will start to show a bit of noise, but essentially, because that's a really sort of high-res picture, you are going to get some really nice sort of views there. So yeah, just something to be aware of. But yeah, that essentially is most of what I wanted to cover here today. Of course, we'll be looking at any questions you guys have popped in the chat, and just want to sort of finish off really just by making sure that you guys are aware of the Help tab here and the Knowledge Center. If you click on Knowledge Center, it will bring you to this page here. And you could, for instance, type in 360. Okay, and you can then go on to one of these sort of articles here. We are always adding to these as well on the support desk, and always thinking of new ones for our customers that we think they might find helpful. So particularly handy if it's a weekend and we're not available. And so just to kind of also, apart from the Knowledge Center, let you know that we're still doing training, of course, sort of all online at the moment. And if you are sort of interested in learning some more about Fusion, then please do get in touch. Our details are just on screen now, and of course we'll be hoping to hear from you in the near future. So once again, thanks very much for joining us here today, and do take care.